So we're going to talk about the pyramid that I was, top member of, and it predominantly resided of the 13 families, the Irish, the UK individuals, and the Egyptians. The Egyptians are essentially the Illuminati family of the 13 families from Africa. The Egyptians are very much still alive today, and they're still doing the same traditional crap where they enslave a nation of people. They tried to demote me from rank 1 to rank 2 with using their biblical Satanism, coughing up scripture about Joseph having been put in jail, abused, sold by his brothers to so-and-so, and then eventually elevated to being second in command of Egypt. And I told them, fuck you, because why would I want to be second in command of a nation of people that were slaves when I could just free them? So you can see how wrong of a mentality that they have still to this day, where they think they can enslave nations and treat people poorly. And that's why you've seen agendas like BLM burning down cities, causing billions of dollars worth of damage, and everyone else turning a blind eye because of reparations in previous generations of slavery and stuff like that. So it's kind of forgive the metaphor when I say it, but what you're seeing right now in the public eye that's showing up on the news is a lie. It's demonic. It's literally the pot calling the kettle black, right? So like I said, forgive the metaphor when I put it that way, but the same people who are complaining about slavery, the upper echelon of those people have enslaved nations, and they still fucking do it to this day. So when I tell you that the Bible is correct when it comes to Pharaoh, the Egyptians, Moses, that's all true. And you can see that because it occurs still in this day. But anyways, they tried to make me the equivalent of Joseph, where I said, no, you're not allowed to demote me from rank 1 to rank 2. You can't do that. And so, but they wanted me to agree to that. And I said no. But you can see why the United States is crumbling, because one of the leaders of that black community in the same pyramid as me thought that was okay. And so she resided in New York, and she actually, I think, comes from like either the Cleopatra or Nefertiti bloodline. And I know that for a fact because you can look at her and you can just blatantly see it when you see the hieroglyphs, the pictures that have portrayed that particular bloodline. You can just outright see that she has royal blood in her, ancient royal blood. And it's not hard to tell, we'll put it that way, if you're someone like me who can basically look at bloodlines and recognize which of the 13 families they come from. Because in reality they've got very thick, strong DNA, and the DNA is so strong that you end up with very similar looking people. They come from the same family. You can look at it and be like, damn, that guy looks just like someone else I know. Damn, that girl just looks like her dad. Like crazy stuff like that. The DNA is so thick in these bloodlines that no matter who they have a kid with, it just like, it doesn't matter. The kid comes out looking like the strong genetic pattern. But anyways, back to what I'm talking about. They tried to justify the abuse. And it's like, no, I'm what you would call the operant power in my own life. I have choices. I make my own life. I make my own decisions. And I'm not going to allow you to tell me that my own people tried to sell me in slavery to a black community who enslaves people, just so I can be elevated up to rank 2 to manage more enslaved people. Like, no, fuck you. You guys are trash. You have harmed a country irreparably that has tried to make up for their mistakes and tried to make it better. And all I've heard is you complain. And the funny thing is that I come from the Native American bloodline of the Lakota. I'm a direct descendant of Crazy Horse, and they're building a statue, right, similar to Mount Rushmore. right? They're still carving his face. They're still carving Crazy Horse's face. That's my ancestor. That's my direct ancestor. And so I usually don't complain about what's happened to my ancestors, but it kind of pisses me off that I'm sitting in the same pyramid in the country of my ancestors and having the black community in the same pyramid as me sit there and complain about how they need reparations because of slavery and everything else that occurred to them. It's important to take in consideration during the same time there was also Chinese slaves that were building the railroads shortly after the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights in 1776. Shortly after that, in the early 1800s, Chinese came in in droves and built the railroads too. But you don't hear the Chinese complaining about their slavery, the slave labor they had endured, and everything else that comes with that. You don't hear one word about that. So, and you hardly hear Native Americans complain about how their land was taken. They were genocided, right? It's one thing to be enslaved. It's another thing to be completely fucking exterminated and put on very small reservations. And so when I sit here and I tell you that I have sat here quietly long enough, listening to my own people in what I would consider part of my own pyramid, sit there and bitch and gripe and complain while I've sat there quietly thinking about how my people were genocided, you got another thing coming. God is watching, and you've been misbehaving, and you've been misquoting his Bible for far too long and trying to torture people that have been done nothing but try to help you and pull you out of the hole you dug for yourself. So back to the Cleopatra Nefertiti bloodline. So she resided in New York at the time. She moved because she's on a warpath, and essentially Hollywood likes to make movies about reality, and you never know what the reality of the movie might be about in the way that they're getting their inspiration. But you can usually 95% of the time assume that it comes from a satanic source. And so what you're looking at in the new Star Wars series, The Acolyte, is the fight against good and evil. And right now there's an evil black Jedi assassin that's running around killing other Jedi. And this is all actually a metaphorical statement of what's happening in reality in this pyramid that I'm discussing right now. Because I come from a German bloodline. Obviously, Disney is one of my bloodlines is German. I come from Alexander the Great, who was a descendant of Kaiser Wilhelm, which is my descendant. So I think Kaiser Wilhelm II. I'm not sure exactly how all that, I don't know exactly. It's written in my family tree. We'll just put it that way. So I go back to thinking about that, and so of course you have these little paying homages from parts of what you call the societal you've got these different bloodlines and different companies, and they all kind of pay homage to the people on top. And so that's kind of one of the things is they'll write stories, and it's kind of like back in the day when you had heroes, they'd sing ballads about them and write songs and stuff like that would forever solidify their name in history. They do that hidden now with people that you would never expect to be the unsung heroes of society in the world. So what's happening with the Acolyte right now is that same person that's from New York, who was one of the leading members of that particular group, she's running around like a crazy bitch killing people in reality. So what you see is her going around killing other Jedis. Those are other members of the Illuminati. So she's running around probably cleaning up her own mess, killing people. And that's the reality of the situation, is that she is essentially what you call wiping the slate clean. And so Disney is writing a fucking movie about it. And I honestly am having a hard time figuring out how to cope with that, sitting here quietly, because, you know, this is kind of stuff that really, it's an unspoken truth to keep your fucking mouth shut about this stuff. And I've pretty much had it with this kind of crap. I've watched the black community sit there and complain. You know, Buffalo Soldier, written by Bob Marley, was about the black man with rifles coming up against Native American Indians with bows. And so when I say that the black community, enslaved or not, chose to pick up weapons against my own people and complain about it, and they facilitated and assisted in genociding one of my own bloodlines. I don't feel too bad about talking about how one of them is running around trying to do the exact same shit that they did hundreds of years ago. So history repeats itself. And you look at the Egyptian bloodline right now, they are doing the same shit they were doing thousands of years ago. They're intentionally trying to enslave a nation right now. So that's what you're seeing in the United States with BLM, the black and red, that is matching the Antifa and stuff like that. The black community is being manipulated and controlled by the Egyptian bloodline in order to take over and enslave America. And that's why you look at BLM, the leaders of BLM were Marxists. They're being facilitated by the Communist Party of China to do this. So China has literally weaponized the black people, not only against themselves, but against every other race in the country. So basically the race that is sitting there screaming about racism is what you would consider unknowingly being the most racist group of all, which this is probably a very politically incorrect thing to say, but you know, what hides in the dark must eventually come to the light. And it very much frustrates me to sit quietly while my bloodline has been genocided by the same people who want to sit there and complain about the things that had happened to them. And meanwhile, they're trying to enslave the same nation. I think it's a big pile of crap. So yeah, you know, the Acolyte is actually a true story. There is a black, quote unquote, Jedi gone rogue and has gone evil that's running around killing other Illuminati members, and probably to save her own ass, clean up the mess, right? Because you know, you start putting two and two together. Puff Daddy's house wasn't raided in New York. She's from New York, and then she's running around cleaning up the mess. So you know, the fortunate thing is that because of rank, they try to tell me I'm second place. The point is that they don't have the authority or the legal right as demons to harm me. That's one of the things. She's running around killing other people that have probably succumbed to the whims of the devil. I have not, so I haven't opened up a door for her to come in and take advantage of that situation and actually do damage to me. That's the beautiful thing, bro. I just want to let everyone know that is literally the beautiful thing about being a creature of light. If you remain pure, if you maintain your faith, if you do your best to not sin, you don't leave those doors open, you literally become untouchable by the devil. It doesn't matter what rank they are, how much money they have, who they are, you become untouchable. And you know, I never thought it was going to be like this before. I never thought, oh look, number one. Yeah, there I am, right? Anyways, those are signs. You see little signs like that. I haven't even really been looking at anything besides the ground. I just put my backpack down, put my backpack down right there, and you get little signs like that tell you what's up. So that's basically the divine creator, whatever you want to call it, the universe or God, speaking to you. If you see the signs and synchronicities, you recognize those. Yeah, so this woman, what she does is she identifies as black and red. Those are the colors of her group. And she tried to drag me in at a period of time. And the thing is that we were okay at first, and then I was like, hey, let me go hang out. But she said, no, you're not worthy. And that was kind of a sad state in which which she didn't recognize my value at the time. It was a sad state for her because she didn't realize that I was, she looked at me on the outside and thought I was a dumb redneck that lived out in a cabin. And that was far from the truth. I had spent some time in jail. I had broken half my body, and I almost was thrown into prison for, God, half of my life. The charges that they were trying to throw at me would be something the equivalency of what you would see I could have done 25 to life, we'll put it that way, with what they were trying to charge me with, and it was a lie. But nevertheless, if I had gone with it, I would not be here to talk about the injustices of the criminal system for myself as a white Native American or any other color for that matter. And so you go look at BLM burning down cities and causing all this fucking mess, and then at the same time that same community complains about how there's so many different black people in jail, and then you look at the population, the percentage, and the amount of murders that happen with guns and crime violence, and you start looking at the statistical data, and you realize that, yeah, there is a problem in that community, and it happens in the lower class ghettos quite frequently. And so it's sad because in today's day and age with political correctness, you can't explain to someone without them getting angry about the situation that it is what it is, and kind of clean up your mess, right? Clean up the mess that you've created for yourself and your community. And the sad thing is that there's a lot of beautiful communities, right? Like churches and stuff like that, Southern Baptist churches, that end up having to take the difficult truth of this, and that it's an uphill battle and a hard struggle. And one of the things that really causes this problem is what you call thug culture. And that thug culture is perpetuated not by R&B, not by jazz, not the beautiful music that the black people have created in the South, like in Louisiana, right? Louisiana, Arkansas, places like that, where you've got some of the best jazz in the world comes from those places. And that's the badass part of the black community. That's the part that I appreciate, and you've got rap, and I got rims, a grill, I'm a thug, I got hoes and money, right? And so that perpetuates basically gang culture, smuggling, prostitution, drug dealing, rape, murder, theft, and all the shit that you've seen happen over the course of the last few years that is damaged the nation to the point where it's swayed a presidential election. And it's kind of funny because the country's not burning down right now. We have a black female president, that was a wrong thing to say, that she's not going to be president, I can tell you that much. We have a candidate for presidency that is a black female, and the worst part is that she's half black, and she's also a half Asian Indian, but you will never see her mention that she's Indian, which is one of the 13 bloodlines, right? That's one of the 13 bloodlines, is the Indian bloodline. But she's never going to mention that because there's not enough Indian people in the country of the United States, as far as demographics go, for her to get enough of a vote. So she's never going to mention that. She doesn't care that she, as a lawyer, got inspired by her grandfather, who also was in the field of law. And so that's something that would frustrate. God, if I was her grandfather, I'd be mad that she wasn't, bragging up and being proud of her heritage on the Indian side, saying that part of the reason why she became Attorney General in California and elevated as a lawyer up to that position was because of the influence of her grandfather. See, you'll never hear that. But here's the thing. Most black people won't know that either. They just see a pretty black woman as the face of their new president, and they go, woohoo, want a black woman as president. They don't think past her bullshit. And that's one of the things, is that, in reality, I used to hang out when I was a teenager. No, I was early 20s at the time. I used to hang out with this biker, right? And he was ex-military. I'm not gonna say what branch and what he did, but he was a fucking badass, right? He was a badass. And I remember one time I slighted him a little bit, and he was smoking a cigarette, and he flicked a cigarette in the ashes in the ashtray, and he looked up at me, and he said, you know, I've killed for less. And he was serious. He was absolutely serious to me. He didn't blink or anything. I'm going, geez, you know, like I just made a silly joke. I'm like, okay. I'm like, don't make fun with don't make fun of the special forces biker, right? Don't make fun of the special forces biker. Whatever you do, you know, have respect for the old man. And I thought that was a wise decision after that, to just be as smart as possible. So yeah, when I look at things, you know, that was just an experience in my life that you think about those kinds of situations, and just a crazy moment in my life. My life has been a series of crazy moments, and well, what I'm doing is I'm kind of unleashing really what I've been doing, hiding in plain sight for the last 2 decades. What I can tell you that my influences has been over is these are the sectors of society. It's medical, recycling, political, agricultural, and kind of like sociological. You could say psychological. There's things that I've done, like there's a nationwide suicide hotline in the United Kingdom. I had a part in putting that out there. A lot of the light therapy to help people's skin heal up from like dermatitis and problems like that. The red light therapy, that was something that I had a serious influence in, that I helped create over 15 years ago. One of the earliest companies that had started putting that out in South Africa. I had influence over doing that. I was kind of an accident because I was gardening with those at the time. I was making my own LED panels, and I was actually gardening. And so then I did some more research. I realized that the 630 to 660 nanometer wavelength, red wavelength, would permeate the cutaneous layers of the skin and down to the subcutaneous, and actually start healing the base level of the skin. And it's kind of funny because that actually made it very... African people, black people, have a hard time with acne and stuff like that because of the melanin in their skin, and just kind of like the consistency of their skin. It's a little more difficult to treat a person with a darker skin color of acne. And there's just different techniques and ways to work with that. But light therapy is kind of works for everybody. And so that was kind of a nice blessing to give to pretty much anybody who needed their skin healed and cleared up. And that was kind of something I had done on accident. I also came up with a fertilizer combination that's used in some of the countries of bloodlines that have heart conditions that have a tendency of blowing their hearts out. I came up with a fertilizer combination that strengthens the heart for tomatoes. And so you've got a high level of lycopene in tomatoes, which is what helps muscles that pump blood. And so what I did is I took the fruits and vegetables that are high content of lycopene and developed a fertilizer around facilitating, strengthening the benefits of that lycopene in combination with other chemicals, whatever you want to call it, minerals, vitamins, and boosted the strength of those tomatoes. So there's some large tomato manufacturing companies in those countries, I'm not going to say which, that are purposely using some of my fertilizer combinations in order to develop a product that their people, their bloodlines can eat to help facilitate them from not blowing their hearts out. See, the thing is I've had my influence over all 13 families. I ended up elevating myself a little bit too high this time after my last fall. My last fall was 12 years ago when I almost died in jail. But the beautiful thing is that I ended up elevating myself to an extent to where now no one family can take me down. you know, and so I've essentially become what you would call somewhat untouchable to a certain extent. And just because, well, like I used to say before I had to do stuff to survive, this is something I learned after I got out of jail, is that the government doesn't respect anything except collateral damage. That's where we're at right now. A lot of the government entities don't respect the law. They will just go out of their way to screw someone up. If they feel like that person needs to just go away, they'll break the law. They'll do all kinds of dumb shit. And so that's what I realized, is that the government, just generally speaking, doesn't respect anything except collateral damage. And that's what I had to experience in jail, is that I had to put them in a position to where they would actually treat me correctly and, you know, follow the law and not break my constitutional rights, as well as my human rights, which they broke both of. So back to the 13 families. Another family, I'm not going to say which, but it's going to be pretty obvious when I explain this. They run my colors, because I have a specific set of colors that I run, and you'll probably figure it out, because I'm about the world. I'm about taking care of the world for the next generation to have a nice, clean, healthy environment, and for people to be able to live free and have good food and not end up eating bugs and crickets in their food and ending up with too much chitin in their body, and that forming into pockets and cysts because your body rejects that form of protein, and that end up coming out of your skin and causing more cancer. And yeah, the 13 families have a fucked up side to them too, trying to feed people bugs instead of taking those bugs, feeding chickens, and then eating the eggs, which is a simple process, and it's very effective and very efficient to do that. So we'll just say that I was one of the people who got the first the first heads up that the upper echelon had the intention of feeding people crickets. In the UK is where they were going to start rolling it out, and I said no. I said, why not just why not make it a point to feed chickens and be as efficient as possible? Just grow the crickets, feed the chickens, and then feed people eggs. It's not that hard. So that was one of the things that, you know, there's nasty creatures that I have to fight and deal with at the same time. So yeah, you know, like, power to the people. I'm not feeding anybody bugs. And I've eaten crickets before. They're tasty. They taste like sunflower seeds, but you're not really supposed to eat much, right? Your body doesn't digest it the same way that they should, in the same way other proteins. So back to one of the families, I had influence in what you would call eco-friendly offshore rigs for oil drilling. They have reefs around them. They're basically like an island built out in the middle of the bay, and they're surrounded with enough sand and enough stone to prevent the oil rig from washing away, but it also creates an actual reef for the fish around it, and it also prevents, if there ever is an oil spill, it pretty much minimizes and almost completely negates the oil to spill out into the ocean. And so that's something of a company that I have. It's part of my thing of what I do. That particular company is part of the influence over the world to help facilitate a better future for the next generation. And I have to admit, like, I myself don't have any kids. You know, I straight up had some people that were trying to control me and lock me down in whatever way they could. Like I said previously, they threw the kitchen sink at me with just about every carnal pleasure on the planet, and, you know, I managed to resist the temptation. But one of the things is that, you know, they were saying, these beautiful women saying they want to have kids with me and hardly know me. It's kind of one of those things where you have to be careful. You know, you don't want to be put under control of someone for 20 years and beat down and taken advantage of and harmed along the way, and living a miserable life because you're constantly being emotionally abused. And you have to be careful with who you have a child with, and especially someone like me. It's kind of crazy because, like, I make my own choices, but most people in my position with my bloodlines, they're not even allowed to make those choices. It's almost like you old time India and in parts of Asia, that's like their prearranged marriages, and that's how the 13 families work a lot of the time. They straight up have prearranged marriages, and yeah, it's not my cup of tea to allow that to happen to myself. I was born free. I was born in a country where I'm supposed to be free. I stand for the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, regardless of really where I am and who I'm talking to and what country I'm in, because I feel that people have a right to be free, right? And so people have a right not to eat bugs. People have a right to raise their children in a world where they know that their children will be able to live freely and be happy and not have to worry about the problems that you see the dark side trying to create. And so yeah, you know, those offshore oil rigs was another thing I had my finger in. And you know, there's school bus signs that have the color that I identify with, so you can kind of figure out what my color is. It's recently come out pretty strong in the last 10-12 years. There's a particular name for it in French. Another one of my bloodlines, I had no idea that this particular color was named with a French word, and so it's my favorite color too. That particular color is something that's kind of come out in you know, in society on a massive scale. Actually, the shoe company Nike uses it too. Oh yeah, law enforcement is another one of my branches of things that I work with, because I studied law privately, and I also had one hell of a tutor that taught me the basic fundamental foundations of law and how it's supposed to work. And so that was something that I still have control over as far as management of law. Part of me earning that was to go through jail and basically defeat a superior court judge without law books. Because I was supposed to have law books in there. They didn't give me law books for months, and so finally I used what I had left in my head, what I had studied, to take a superior court judge and flip her on her head. And so that kind of was like what you'd call the proving ground to show that I was worthy of being able to make those choices. And so that's something that I still to this day have control and maintained over. And you'll see the colors actually of that. You know, those flag colors will be raised. So health is another part. Just, you know, so you see a lot of running shoes with one of my colors. It's all paying homage to the influence you have as an individual on the side of light, the side of good, to help the world move forward in a positive way for the next generation. And you know, actually, I can show you right here. I mean, this is worldwide. The recycling dumpsters are my color. So I'm just gonna drop it. I'm gonna just drop it right here and show you what's up. So there it is. Here's my color. Right, that's chartreuse. So that's the French word for it. It's called chartreuse. I didn't even know that was the color name, and it was a French word until recently. But you know,